Hello, I'm joined by my guest today, Mike Delatt of Vouch. Mike, how are you doing?
Not bad. As you can see, I'll get ahead of you here. Yes, you're about to poke fun at my t-shirt to background colours, but I'm just simply representing at this stage. Yeah, doing absolutely brilliantly. Thank you.
There's nothing wrong with camouflage, my friend. You know, it's protection. Mike, excited to talk to you today, really, because this is quite a field of changes that are happening within the industry. And today we're going to focus on those changes and really ask what's happening in the industry and what's happening with Vouch. So I suppose we'll take it from the top. In terms of the most recent state of the lettings industry report and its findings, there are sort of key points in there that make every agent go, "Ooh, I don't like the sound of that." To me, the one thing that kept coming out of this is that the private rented sector is expected to pick up quite a bit of slack, and yet our hands are being tied behind our backs sometimes by legislative change, and a lot of people are worried about what the future holds. So give us your take on it.
Definitely. And the thing I always like to caveat when anybody asks us in here about it is they are proposed changes. So actually, yes, it's nice to have these proposed changes in front of the industry, in front of landlords, in front of agents, but there's actually no sort of fixed date on when they're going to come into play at this stage, unless in the last 5 minutes something's changed and this becomes instantly out of date. I think the main thing, the lengths that Goodlord and Vouch go to, we produce these state of the industry reports. And the idea behind those, of course, is we go out there and speak to hundreds and indeed thousands of letting agents to kind of gauge their opinion on things from that side, because ultimately that's who's going to bear the brunt on things. I suppose the downside, of course, to the Renters Reform Bill, of course, as it seems, and in essence, to kind of make it easier for tenants to misbehave, if that's the right phrase to use. It doesn't. A lot of the changes that are coming into play, like certainly abolition of the section notices, S21s, it kind of removes red tape, but at the same time makes it a lot more difficult to embark on a fair eviction process. I think the positive spin I always try and put on it from our side, from Voucher's side, is on the face of it, these types of regulations are seeming to drive landlords away, create a sense of frustration where they think, "Do you know what, it's not worth it, I'm going to go." But on the flip side, as a letting agent, you can actually use it as a tool. You can actually say to your landlords, well, there is a lot of tricky compliance matters coming up on the horizon, and who better position to navigate you through those, that awkward little off-piste ski run, if you like, than me, the letting agent, as well. So it is going to certainly create a challenge, but those better agents should actually, I could be wrong, but could profit from it.
I think that's absolutely spot on, because whether or not we like to admit it, out there are a lot of self-managing landlords, people that they do like that property investor sort of aspect of getting their hands dirty. They understand that to a certain extent, the simplest thing that we do as agents might be just to collect rent and pass it on, but it's the legislation, and it's adhering to these changes and having the systems and processes in place to be able to maintain excellent service to both tenants and also landlords at the same time. And I think now is the time for agents to, I'm not saying that we for a second turn to scaremongering in order to rustle up a bit of business, but let's face it, the average landlord left to their own devices, are they going to keep up with these changes as much as we would as an industry? And my guess is no.
Yeah, and funny enough, I can add to that. I was speaking yesterday actually at an event with a very well-known letting agent. I won't name drop him because he doesn't deserve my 15% fee that I'm owed. But one thing he said is it's amazing the amount of landlords that agents have tried to warn about these changes, and a lot of them seem to shrug their shoulder and go like, "Really? When was that sort of announced?" Actually, a lot of them don't understand the struggle so much as they don't know. They've got actually no idea what's coming. Well.
And unfortunately, ignorance is going to be no defense when it comes down to how these things are eventually prosecuted, if the authorities start to sort of look into these things. And that's interesting. in terms of other findings from the report, if I can just turn to technology for a second,
Mhm.
3/4 of agents, these are the statistics that you've provided us with, and it's fascinating to me. But 3/4 of agents, so that's almost 75% there, agreed to some extent that the lettings industry has been left behind other sectors in its use of technology. I tend to look at this with the perspective of history, that we've come a long way. I mean, if you go back in time 10 years to see what technology was available to lettings agents, it was an extremely barren landscape, and a lot of the solutions that we know and enjoy, including your service today, were nowhere near as fully fledged as what we see. And I think, to a certain extent, using that vision and that long-term history, I think we live in a utopian paradise full of technology solutions that help us to do our job. But clearly, I'm probably in the minority. What do you reckon?
Yeah, and I agree. And it sounds really basic with technology. There's so much prop tech out there now that can help agents. It has come a long, long way in the last 5 years or so. But it's such a basic outlook, but I find there are still a lot of letting agents out there who actually go, do you know what? I don't like change. It scares me. And I think also, to add to that, it's actually using a new piece of technology. It often involves them investing a few weeks in knowing how to properly implement it. They've got to train their staff and all that jazz as well. They actually look at it and go, I'm sure it probably will work quite well for me, but funny enough, I'm a little scared of the whole proposition. And as a salesperson who goes out there and tries to get people to engage with Vouch, for instance, funny enough, that is the main issue that I have. Actually, once they start onboarding and using it and going around, they're like, God, I can't believe I didn't do this 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's that little, almost like stood on the leap of faith ledge at the front and going like, I'm there's that initial scaredness to do it, but it is a real opportunity, certainly with prop tech as well, to streamline what's happening, because there's a lot of processes that are starting to integrate with each other.
Fantastic amount, yeah.
Is actually an opportunity to say, actually, I use this piece of technology. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but we've recently launched an integration with Alto, for instance. Those Alto users out there, they say, oh, if this plugs in here, it saves me another type out. I'll link it all together. So there's that as well.
Yeah, no, and that's what makes it so exciting for me at the moment, because remembering back, just go back just even 5 years, the amount of products that integrated with each other were few and far between, and we all spoke of a day when the greatest line was, it's in development, but now that line doesn't get rolled out as much, because you go and talk to prop tech providers like yourselves. You've worked hard on those integrations, and they are smooth and seamless, and there's no reason at all why agents shouldn't be taking advantage of that. So
and I think from a technology point of view, the whole point behind having this technology is it's removed a lot of the human costs from it. So even those who are a little scared of using it, it's cheaper to use and it's more advanced. So I might be overstepping my mark here, but I do find it quite mind-boggling that some agents don't spend the time to look at it, because there's not just a time thing but a cost thing, and
I think that's the key to it, that I think it's the uptake that isn't there at volume, and I think there are a tremendous amount of agents still they find the term prop tech perhaps a little bit sort of too bamboozling, and maybe we mystify things too much, but really these are just tools that can help you. But they're more affordable now than ever before. And if you look at the cost of certain services, every agent should definitely be looking at that. But I would say that, right?
I think you have to at this point, but yes, no, I do agree with you. Yeah.
One of the other sort of findings and statistics, and it's all over the news headlines at the moment, and you can't avoid it, is that almost half of tenants are concerned that the cost of living crisis could impact their ability to pay rent in the future. And I actually think there are some shockwaves reaching out now across the industry, because things like HMO situations where bills are included, those energy bills are now going to become less affordable. So landlords are going to have to think about putting up rents, and rents are rising in general just due to lack of supply of properties. It's that perfect storm, isn't it, really, of an energy crisis and rising costs in general. It's nobody has a magic wand to make it go away. But do you think it could be managed well by agents in terms of how they communicate with the tenants and landlords?
Yeah, and I think it can. It definitely can. But actually, what it will perhaps drown out is those less skilled agents as well, because there's going to be a skill to making these rent increases sound fair. Because of course, part of this legislation is you can't now just rock up willy-nilly and go, oh, by the way, I'm putting your rent up again. He's actually got to be dressed up in a fair manner as well. I'm sure at some point it might come to this pets thing, which is very divisive as well. But from
very true, yeah.
From a rent increase point of view, there's got to be a certain validity behind it. And actually, having said that, the rising energy costs, I would contest, are a validity. But there are going to be situations in certain geographical areas where you might get a situation where rents are going from not so much double, but yeah, it's going to be difficult. I don't really have a happy sort of fluffy answer to that. It's going to be a difficult balancing act for everyone.
And I think it is, and that's the point. I don't think there are any easy answers to this, and I don't think there is that kind of solution out there at the moment. I think it's a problem that we as a society almost, and I imagine it's the same across the board globally. If you look at sort of economies post COVID and everything else that we have to sort of contend with, and with obviously the events in Ukraine. You've got that perfect storm of horribleness that sort of drives up prices for people, and I think we need to get better perhaps at sort of working out where the sort of private rented sector and the public rented sector can work together to create affordable housing for people, because not everybody is going to be able to afford this in the long run, and all we know is that demand is steadily increasing. So it's something that we need to kind of collectively solve together, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose the only good news that ties in with this, of course, is the capping of things. I mean, I'm not going to put online any political allegiances I have here. I don't think that's a very wise tangent to go off on, but fair play to them for actually stepping in to do something and capping the energy rates and levels of price increase. Because I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what would happen if that hadn't have come to fruition.
Well. No, but it's certainly going to be a difficult time for many, and I think as agents we need to sort of get better at having those conversations. There are going to be difficult conversations, and as you said, it's how you conduct those. And I suppose the less skilled agents are not going to get as far with those conversations and hold them productively.
And I think the last thing I'd probably add to that is, this is just my opinion, but with skilled agents, I often find embarking on those conversations sooner rather than later will really help, because the more run up you get at potentially presenting bad news, I'm not saying it's taken well, but it really takes the wham blow impact out of it if you try and drop it onto people last minute.
Let's talk about more positive and happy things, right? We want to know what's going on at Vouch, and you've got a couple of new developments, and they're very exciting. You've got some integrations that's a first of its kind. Tell us what you're rolling out, because I know that we spoke separately about the EA Masters, which is just one of the events that you're attending this year, but you're also going to be introducing these new rollouts there, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. We never have a rest here. I'd like some sleep at some point, for what it's worth, if my wife on the off chance is listening as well. But from the point of view of new developments, yes, we're at a lot of events in the coming months, one of which is EA Masters, and what we are going to be rolling out and telling people about really are two major developments here. We, first off, recently have integrated with Alto, the Alto CRM system, which by all intents and purposes seems to be a natural push for those of you who are Dupix users as well, which of course is coming to an end. But it's a live integration. So what we've actually done is twinned up Vouch's Core Plus service, which is our fully managed service, fully service referencing product, and it will now go as a live integration into Alto. So you can actually run a live, no extra work referencing service from Alto, which is just built in the background and managed, an account managed by Vouch, for a very quick turnaround as well. We have taken time and care to bring the right product to plug in there. And this is the best solution for those agents out there who don't want a lot of involvement in the referencing. They'd rather just have a nice, quick, easy solution that's easy for tenants to do. And that's exactly what we're bringing in. But it's just to help as well replace a lot of lost market ground with not having a CRM referencing provider that plugs in as well.
Fantastic.
On top of that, this isn't live right this second. I will get that out there before a director runs in here and tells me that I'm jumping the gun, which is very likely. We are also bringing onto the market our instant product as well, which is actually a live, we call it instant because it happens fast. Instant, in fact, it's very clever how we've worded it. It's basically a basic, almost pre-qualifying check that Vouch will do on the tenant. So rather than going out there like we do now and getting hold of a full reference, employment, landlord's details, we can actually get a snapshot of your tenants by getting them to fill in a form. It actually involves data and facial capture as well. So literally, once the tenant fills out their form, we will get a ID check done on them and a credit check done on them on the spot and feed a result back in, which is actually being priced out at just £3 per check.
Whoa! So that's tremendously affordable. It's instant, and that's going to sort of clearly help you to. I suppose that helps you get to the right tenant quicker, doesn't it? So if you, are you suggesting that the agents are going to sort of replace regular referencing with a quicker solution?
I wouldn't say replace so much, because I think there's still that situation where agents aren't always sold on their tenants, and it gives them an avenue to say, actually, before I commit to a full reference, I will jump on now and make sure that they are as authentic as they seem, because that's what we're. And actually, we've built this because we've been listening to agent feedback. One thing we get, particularly from the HMO market, is I might not necessarily want a full-blown reference to start with. I want something that just snapshots things, gives me a good clue, and then I can crack on and do the rest of my compliance and referencing as I make, it just allows them a platform to make a better decision and more informed decision as well.
Fantastic. So for agents obviously watching this and are interested in talking to you guys about how they can work with you, what's the way that you go about it? Do they jump on a demo call with you? What will you be looking for from them in terms of information?
Definitely. So what we always like to do is make sure we're speaking to the right agents and it's a suitable product for them. We don't strong arm anyone into anything that isn't going to work for them. But the easiest way to get hold of the info is, obviously, if you see it at an event, come and speak to us. We're actually quite friendly, which it might come as a surprise to certain quarters.
No surprise to me. I've met you before. I know you're as friendly as they come.
I know. Well, yes, I like to think I am, but I'm biased. But no, the best thing to do is to actually book in a quick demo of the system. We do it all virtually. Agents can do it at times to suit them. It's just a nice little snapshot where we can virtually display how Vouch works and the type of referencing that works for them as well. And before they then start committing to use our service, which I'm pleased to say is very good, it actually gives them the chance to take a look visually for themselves rather than just listen to a little audio clip.
You don't just have to take his word for it. He's an award-winning supplier. Their service has been vouched for by many agents, excuse the pun, but it's true. The reviews are out there. You can see them on kerfuffle.com as well. Just absolutely superb feedback. And I guess what I like about you guys is that you don't ever rest and you don't ever sleep, and you're constantly developing, because a lot of people may say, well, referencing is referencing, let's leave it where it was, it does the trick. But you're always finding ways to make the process smoother, faster, and also deliver something that benefits, I suppose, landlord, tenant, and agent. You're ticking all three boxes, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think I will pick up on something you said about, some agents will sit there and go, well, we've used the same referencing provider for 15 years. I don't really see, agents, customers don't have to be unhappy with what they've got now to recognize there's actually something out there that can improve what they're doing. And that's always the message I try and get across. And that's why we don't, I'm going full-blown sales on you here, but that's why we don't have things like long-term contracts, etc., because it gives agents the ability for us to say, well, prove it to you. and give you the flexibility if you don't like it in 6 months, which is not what we want. It still gives you an out if for whatever reason you feel that's not for you as well.
And it's really great to see that you've got that full confidence in your service. It keeps you on your toes, always providing a excellent customer journey for everybody. Mike, I'd like to thank you for your time. I know we're going to see you at the EA Masters. Are you attending other events this year, or?
More, yes, a lot. So much so, if my children recognise me in December, I'll be amazed at this point. But
there's always very difficult conversations that happen in prop tech households at this time of the year. It's yeah. So when's the next one, and how long are you going to be gone for? Now, I've had those conversations already this week, but it's all in the name of a good cause. Mike, we'll see you at all those events. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.
Excellent. Thank you. No, wonderful to have me as well. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.